if you enjoy the content of my videos, you can like, subscribe, hit the notification bell to get notices of my uploads of all my videos, and also comment down below. Welcome. This is the Day Show, and I am Day Summers.
This is a CBS News special report. I'm Gail King with Vladimir Duthier and Bianca Golodriga here in New York. Special counsel Robert Mueller's office has just announced that former National Security Advisor Michael Flynn will plead guilty to a perjury charge. The retired Army three-star general is the highest-ranking official so far to be charged in the investigation of Russian election meddling.
The plea agreement released minutes ago says Flynn made a false statement to the FBI in January. Flynn was forced out as National Security Advisor in February after he misled Vice President Mike Pence about his contact with Russian officials.
The sentencing has now been delayed. We're told the judges decided to put it off. Michael Flynn was supposed to be sentenced today. His lawyers finally accepting the hint from the judge that it be delayed. The judge says he wants to see the full extent of Michael Cohen's cooperation with federal prosecutors before he sentences him. A clear indication the judge is prepared to send Michael Flynn to prison today if Michael Flynn wanted to go ahead with it. The judge, in the end, talking about the Papadopoulos and the Vanderswan cases, in which both of those defendants in the special counsel investigation convicted of lying served prison time. Short prison time, but they served prison time. The judge essentially saying, you were the National Security Advisor to the President of the United States. How do they go to jail? You don't go to jail. That's what I'm taking away from this, and he wants to see, and correct me, yes, there's the Virginia case. His two former lobbying partners who've now been charged with not filing the right paperwork and acting as foreign agents. But there's the redacted part of the Mueller investigation, which is about Russia. By clear hint here is the judge wants to know, what is that about? What's the fruit that's redacted before I decide you don't go to prison?
Well, the judge saw what's redacted. I mean, the judge would have received the information of what was the full scope of his cooperation. The special counsel's office had filed that. So the judge already has in front of him, even though we don't know, more of the information regarding what Michael Flynn was cooperating about in all aspects of the special counsel's investigation. On the point of the comparisons to the other two individuals that did actually serve jail time, there could be an aspect to the judge's consideration of why does the more senior, experienced person get off free, and the two low-level guys, supposedly, you know, that would be the argument. One was a lawyer in private practice. One was a low-level campaign assistant, campaign aide on the National Security Advisory team, I guess, which was a small team. And so there might be some perspective from the judge that Michael Flynn, maybe he was going to sentence him to a week or two, or just some sort of symbolic level of jail time. But I really do think that the lawyers raised a whole lot of issues in this and made a bit of a mess of it, where they could have just accepted the prosecutor's recommendation, and all of the information that they provided to the judge regarding Michael Flynn's lifetime of service should have been enough to, in addition to his cooperation, go ahead with the prosecutor's recommendation. And so the hearing is now over. Michael Flynn will not be sentenced today. He wanted to close this chapter and begin to move on with his life. Clearly took the hint from the judge that that was going to include prison time unless he agreed to delay it. And now this stays open. Again, we're looking at the context of Michael Flynn, the highest-ranking official charged by Robert Mueller, at a time when we also know this investigation is expanding, not contracting.
Right. I mean, this is, and the president is still dealing with the question of whether he's going to be interviewed by Mueller, and there are questions that haven't been resolved in terms of his own cooperation. But to have this continuing to hang over him at a time when there's already a lot of anxiety about what the next shoe is to drop in the investigation is not something that's going to make the president very happy. He has a few other things on his mind, and I think part of what he was tweeting about this morning was a real sense of wanting to have some closure, at least on this piece.
Tonight, revealing shocking new details concerning Hillary Clinton's email system, that illicit system, identifying at least 18 classified emails found on Anthony Weiner's laptop. Weiner, of course, once married to Clinton aide Uma Abedin. Joining us now, Chris Farrell, Director of Investigations and Research for Judicial Watch. That's the organization which has successfully filed a Freedom of Information Act request to release these very documents. Chris, first of all, congratulations on getting these documents and all of the work that Judicial Watch is doing. Now, when we talk about classified, these are not unclassified documents. These are, in fact, classified at the time they were transacting on the email server of Mrs. Clinton at home.
That is correct, Lou, and thanks. It's very important that distinction be made. These records and documents were classified at the time that they were produced and transmitted. They are not so-called retroactively classified. That's a smokescreen and a red herring. They were classified when they were written, they were classified when they were transmitted, and they were classified when they were resident on the Wiener laptop.
And the FBI investigators presumably knew that, did they not? They just didn't share it with the public.
Absolutely. And I have a tidbit concerning Mr. Grassley and the Comey memos. I may be jumping ahead a bit, but this is important.
Jump in any direction you want here.
We have a sworn declaration from David Hardy, who is the chief FOIA officer of the FBI that we obtained just in the last few days. And in that sworn declaration, Mr. Hardy says that all of Comey's memos, all of them, were classified at the time they were written, and they remain classified. So the kind of open question from Mr. Grassley about, is it 4 of 7 or what time were they?
Right.
No, we have a sworn declaration from the chief FOIA officer of the FBI. They were classified at the time that Comey wrote them.
And while that may not be determinate, I suppose at some point forward in litigation, should it come to that, it is determinate in the case of FOIA and gives us a clear understanding, it would seem, the thinking of the FBI as to the level of classification for all of those memoranda.
Well, it's also mishandling of national defense information, which is a crime. So it's clear that Mr. Comey not only authored those documents, but then knowingly and willfully leaked them to persons unauthorized, which is in and of itself a national security crime. Mr. Comey should have been read his rights back on June 8th when he testified before the Senate.
And he has not been read his rights yet. He has not been charged yet. Who would be the charging party? Would it be the FBI itself?
Well, the Attorney General of the United States, the Department of Justice, would actually bring an indictment once they impanel a grand jury. But the investigative process, of course, will be conducted by the FBI.
And the FBI that he once led has to be furious that he has sullied the name of the storied agency, that he has led the FBI in its most politicized, I think it's fair to say. One thought that the J. Edgar Hoover days, parts of those years were highly politicized, but it's beginning to look as nothing touched the FBI during the Obama years.
The recently retired and active duty FBI agents have told me, and it's several of them, they consider Comey to be a dirty cop.
A dirty cop, and one who is certainly pious as he talks about how to...
His tweets with Bible verses and haikus or whatever else he's been writing recently.
and the laudable photography that he has committed out in the Midwest. The list goes on.
The more important thing about what the president knew or didn't know, because this doesn't involve the president in terms of him being involved in any kind of conspiracy or anything else. It's like if it's reported that one of my assistants, when I was a U.S. attorney, lied to the court. How do I know if he did or he didn't? He knows what he reads. The man pled guilty to lying. So yes, we didn't know at the time. I didn't know at the time that the FBI had previously concluded he was telling the truth. I didn't know he had been deprived of a lawyer.
I think, Mayor, you're confusing people.
I'm not confusing people.
All right. Let me ask you 3 last quick questions. There are reports now that the special counsel is interested again in interviewing the president. Has his office reached out to you about sitting down for an in-person interview with the president?
Yes, there are several unpaid parking tickets back in 1986, 87 that haven't been explained.
Seriously?
We've got it. Seriously, unpaid parking tickets.
No.
It was a movie theater where he didn't pay the proper fee.
Is the special counsel, does he want to interview the president?
Yeah, good luck. Good luck. After what they did to Flynn, the way they trapped him into perjury, and no sentence for him, 14 days for Papadopoulos, I did better on traffic violations than they did with Papadopoulos.
So when you say good luck, you're saying no way, no interview.
They're a joke over my dead body, but, I could be dead.
Do they want to speak to the president?
I do have other lawyers. I am disgusted with the tactics they have used in this case. What they did to General Flynn should result in discipline. They're the ones who are violating the law. They're looking at a non-crime collusion. The other guys are looking at a non-crime campaign violations, which are not violations. And they are the ones who are violating the law, the rules, the ethics, and nobody wants to look at them. They destroyed Strzok and Page's texts. 19,000 texts. If he had destroyed 19,000 texts, they'd put him in jail. Even though they can't, because he's the president.
How will the firing of James Comey affect U.S.-Russia relations?
Как повлияли на двусторонние отношения? Увольнение? Увольнение. Да никак не повлияли. There will be no effect. Ваш вопрос выглядит, вы не сердитесь, пожалуйста, он выглядит смешным для меня. Your question looks very funny for me. Don't be angry with me. Мы не имеем к этому никакого отношения. We have nothing to do with that. Президент Трамп действует в рамках своей компетенции. President Trump is acting in accordance with his competence and in accordance with his law and constitution. Мы здесь при чем? And what about us? Why we? Я вот видите, в хоккей собираюсь играть с любителями. You see, I'm going to play hockey with the hockey fans. И вас приглашаю. And I invite you to do the same.
Is Donald Trump unfit to be president?
Yes. He strikes me as a person of above average intelligence who's tracking conversations and knows what's going on. I don't think he's medically unfit to be president. I think he's morally unfit to be president.
Terrorism work, about our counterintelligence work, and I'm sure we'll talk about that today. But I thought
would a reasonable observer say that you are potentially vulnerable to blackmail by Russia or by its intelligence agencies?
Started talking about it, do I look like a guy who needs hookers? I didn't answer that, and then I just moved on and explained, sir, I'm not saying that we credit this, I'm not saying we believe it, we just thought it very important that you know.
Did you believe his denial?
Honestly, never thought these words would come out of my mouth, but I don't know whether the current president of the United States was with prostitutes peeing on each other in Moscow in 2013. It's possible.
Oh, and there's Jim. He's become more famous than me.
He said, I expect loyalty, I need loyalty. And I just stared at him. And he paused, and then he said, honest loyalty, as if he was proposing some compromise or a deal. And I paused and said, you'll get that from me.
Gerald Lynn! You feel you betrayed your country! Your son being indicted! Your son! Will your son be indicted?
Was President Trump obstructing justice?
Possibly. I mean, it's certainly some evidence of obstruction of justice.
That's stunning. You can't say for certain that the President of the United States is not compromised by the Russians.
Yeah, it is stunning, and I wish I wasn't saying it, but it's the truth.
What did it feel like to be James Comey in the last 10 days of that campaign after you sent the letter?
It sucked. I walked around vaguely sick to my stomach, feeling beaten down, felt like I was totally alone, that everybody hated me, and that there wasn't a way out because it really was the right thing to do.
Jonathan Hunt will have the details in a moment. But first, the Labor Secretary, Alex Acosta, is standing in defiance after a firestorm of calls for him to step down or be fired for protecting a sexual predator. This not due to his actions in his current role as Labor Secretary, but rather over how he handled the prosecution of the wealthy hedge fund manager and convicted pedophile Jeffrey Epstein while Acosta was a U.S. attorney in Miami. Yesterday, Epstein pleaded not guilty to charges of sex trafficking and conspiracy after federal prosecutors in New York presented evidence that he sexually abused dozens of underage girls. And yesterday, agents said they found a stash of child porn in a safe in his mansion in Manhattan. Now, critics say Jeffrey Epstein could never have been free or shouldn't have been free in the first place. But back in 2008, Alex Acosta, then the U.S. attorney, led the push to cut an extremely lenient plea deal for the sex predator. Epstein served just more than a year in county jail, but 6 days a week, he was allowed to leave the facility for up to 12 hours at a time to work. Of course, that punishment apparently did not teach Epstein a lesson, as prosecutors say he continued to prey on teenage girls. His alleged victims were never heard. Prosecutors didn't even notify them of the plea deal in Miami, a move that a court later found was a violation of the victim's civil rights law. Alex Acosta brokered that deal, not in a court, but in a hotel, away from witnesses. And today, the now Labor Secretary Acosta attempted to defend his actions, writing, "The crimes committed by Epstein are horrific, and I am pleased that New York prosecutors are moving forward with a case based on new evidence." With the evidence available more than a decade ago, federal prosecutors insisted that Epstein go to jail, register as a sex offender, and put the world on notice that he was a sexual predator. Now that new evidence and additional testimony is available, the New York prosecution offers an important opportunity to more fully bring him to justice. Lots of lawmakers are calling for Acosta to resign, including these. They include the top 2 Democrats in the House, Nancy Pelosi, and from the Senate, Chuck Schumer. And at the Miami Herald, credited with bringing the Epstein investigation into the spotlight, the editorial board writes today, Acosta is an ethically compromised public servant who has failed to address his suspect actions in this case, but he continues to act on the citizens' behalf in the public domain. He has to go. The response? The Department of Labor issued a 5-word statement. Secretary Acosta is not resigning. And when asked about this today, President Trump said he's sympathetic to the Labor Secretary.
I feel very badly, actually, for Secretary Acosta, because I've known him as being somebody that works so hard and has done such a good job. I feel very badly about that whole situation.
But the president also said the White House will look at the situation very carefully. One matter of note here. In the United States government, the Department of Labor is responsible for identifying instances of human trafficking and calculating restitution amounts for victims of human trafficking. So as Labor Secretary, Alex Acosta is in charge.
Some breaking news right here in New York. Former Democratic Congressman Anthony Weiner has been sentenced to 21 months in prison. This all part of what was known as the sexting trial, in which Mr. Weiner pled guilty to a charge of transferring obscene material to a minor. Our own Aaron Katersky was inside the courtroom. He joins us live now outside the courthouse. Aaron, 21 months. Was that what was to be expected in this sentencing?
It was at the lower end of what prosecutors had wanted, but Weiner faced up to 27 months in federal prison. He himself, Amna, asked for probation, but the judge said there was a need for deterrence in this case. Anthony Weiner sent obscene material to a minor, a 15-year-old girl in North Carolina, and he did it toward the end of a 6-year saga of self-destruction. He had lost his congressional seat after a decade representing parts of Brooklyn and Queens. He had lost what may well have become a successful bid for mayor. And finally, he had lost his wife, Huma Abedin, the Hillary Clinton aide who divorced him the very day that he was indicted. And now he is off to prison for the next 21 months, a sentence that caused him to break down in court. As the judge was reading it, Weiner's head fell. He sobbed audibly and stayed that way, not necessarily listening when the judge also imposed computer searches, internet monitoring, and other conditions after he's released from prison.
And Aaron, you were inside that courtroom, as we mentioned. I want to break down a little bit, as you mentioned, that 6-year saga from a rising star congressman to now he will be a registered sex offender. But inside that room, was Mr. Weiner allowed to speak? Did anyone speak on his behalf before the sentencing or after?
His attorney spoke first. Arlo Devlin Brown, the defense attorney, stood and said that this is no sexual deviant, that Anthony Weiner had a deep sickness when he was sending this material to a minor. And he himself, the defense attorney, called it stunning that Weiner was still doing this even after losing his congressional seat and after losing his bid for mayor. That was supposed to be his political comeback. But he said Weiner was not some scheming criminal. He was sick. And he said he's getting treatment, and he spoke about remarkable progress that Weiner has made. And he spoke about the regret that Weiner feels, profound regret for what he had done, but also in a way gratitude that all of this had finally come to the surface and he could get himself help. And then Anthony Weiner rose in his seat, and through frequent clears of his throat and sobs, he told the judge that he has a disease but not an excuse. And he said he took full responsibility for what he did to the 15-year-old girl. He knew that she was a minor, and he said he was profoundly sorry. And in perhaps the most wrenching moment for him, he spoke of his son Jordan, 5 years old. He called the boy his salvation through his treatment. Said he always tried to teach him, when you get knocked down, you get right back up, but realized that that wasn't the right lesson, that he wasn't being honest, he wasn't being truthful, and only once he had to plead guilty to this crime did he start to understand that and get the help that he needed.
Aaron, as you mentioned, this is a man who has basically lost everything now. He lost his career, he has lost his family. He's currently undergoing divorce proceedings with his wife, Huma Abedin, who is a top aide, of course, to former Secretary Clinton. He's lost his reputation. He will now serve prison time. What is being said about him and the coverage of this story and this stunning fall? Does it compare to anything we've seen before?
Well, he himself said he is living a smaller life now, and he spoke about how he will continually need therapy. The prosecutors, though, were really skeptical that therapy and all of this progress that he and his attorney spoke about would be permanent, and that's why the prosecutor said there needed to be some general deterrence, and the judge seemed sympathetic to that argument. The judge actually complimented Weiner for the progress that he was making and agreed with him that he has a disease, a sexual compulsivity that some call sex addiction, as the judge put it. But even then, she said there was the coverage, and she said because Weiner was so high profile and this story has been covered so intensely as it has been, that it could really serve as an example. And once she spoke about that need for general deterrence, it almost became inevitable that he was going to get sent to prison.
Aaron, I mean, Mr. Weiner's actions go down in history for a number of reasons, but of course, maybe even most significantly for their linkage to the election that we will never be able to stop talking about, the 2016 presidential election. I want to get your take on this because you've covered both for so long. Of course, just as a reminder to everyone, when federal investigators were looking into Mr. Weiner's emails, they found some that had been forwarded to a laptop he shared with Huma Abedin, who was, of course, then and remains an aide to Secretary Clinton. And then FBI Director Comey announced this link 11 days before the election. Secretary Clinton now blames that as part of the reason that she went on to lose the election. How has this framed your coverage of this trial, and did it play at all into how people see Mr. Weiner now?
Well, I think in some ways it certainly did. It brought the case to an even bigger audience because of the way it may have factored into the outcome of the election. As you say, Hillary Clinton blamed in part the loss for then FBI Director James Comey's actions upon learning that there were these emails on Weiner's laptop connected to Huma Abedin. And so Weiner, in this odd way, was still factoring into the political conversation 6 years after he lost his congressional seat because of all of this. But in court today, and in the coverage leading up to it, there was really no talk about the election. This was all about the downfall of a man who once held such political promise, a known fighter for liberal causes, an ally of Chuck Schumer, his political protege, and then the potential for a comeback as mayor of New York City, and enduring all of the jokes and the criticism and the tabloid coverage that is so infamous here in New York. And he went through it all, even allowed a documentarian to film his life. And once the extra texts that ultimately led to his downfall in the mayoral race became clear, he was still being shot by a film crew for this documentary. So his whole downfall became public. It's part of the reason, I think, why a different judge just across the way here in Manhattan said that he could not have an anonymous divorce, that the cat was already out of the bag. So his entire life and downfall has been well documented. But today, beyond what he said in court, Weiner arrived and left saying nothing.
Aaron, you mentioned that 2013 documentary, and that mayoral run was supposed to be part of a comeback for Anthony Weiner after the allegations came up in 2011 and all the texts and the monikers and so on. Is there a chance, because look, there's no place that loves a comeback story more than American politics these days. Is there any kind of political future for Anthony Weiner, or is this the end of that part of his life?
I think it's the end. Even his lawyer conceded there are second acts in America, but there are no third acts. And this became his ultimate downfall. As Weiner himself said in court today, being hit with a crime of sending obscene material to a minor was his rock bottom. There's probably no tolerance for a convicted felon now to really run for anything, especially one who was sending this kind of explicit material to a 15-year-old girl. And Weiner hasn't spoken of any resurgence. He has simply, and rather humbly, given his start in public life, said that he wants to focus on his therapy, on his treatment. He goes to sex addiction therapy. He goes to both group and an individual treatment a couple of times a week. And he said he wants to engage with his son in any way possible. And interestingly, that's going to factor into where he serves his jail time. At one point, his defense attorney asked the judge to recommend a minimum security prison somewhere in the greater New York area. And when the judge informed him that she would not recommend a specific prison for him to go to, she asked if he wanted just generally to be in the New York area. But that risks him being sent to prison right here in Manhattan in a maximum security prison where he would have no possibility of contact with his son. And so he shook his head saying no, he did not want the judge to recommend a specific place to serve his time. He wants the chance, the off chance, even if he's far away, that the boy would come visit him.
Well, stunning fall from, as we mentioned, a once rising star congressman to now a convicted felon there. Aaron Kutersky, live for us outside the federal courthouse in Manhattan. Thank you, Aaron.
The Lolita Express Pedophile Fantasy Island Part 2. I just wanted to get into this video and just to show y'all some more background. I just showed you backgrounds of past clips and current clips of the Jeffrey Epstein situation. I wanted to show what really kind of put some of this stuff in motion and why we as African Americans need to know about this stuff and need to watch it and study and research it for our own plans that we might have and to help us later on. Now, these are stuff that you see with the situation that's going on, of how these people obtain power, get power, and handle power and do all these types of things that we are never able to do. Now, the other group that's not shown in here are Boule. And Boule, even though they have blackface, they're not going to show us any of this stuff. They're not going to teach us any of this stuff. But if we sit here, research, and find out how this stuff started and how they do their things and how these types of things are brought about, and we can use that to our advantage also, as us trying to do this ADOS thing or this DOS thing or this Black Movement Power Unity thing and all of these things that we're trying to do. We need to sit and research and learn and figure out how they did what they did and understand that at some point we might have to do those type of things too. I mean, not the evil part, not the satanic part, not the part where they are hurting each other and the only way you can get involved with it is to be dirty. That's what you see, and that's what you see, the implosion and dysfunction that they're going through. And this is why they need to be cleared out. And the queen herself is going to allow it because she needs to have everything cleared out. You know, this is the conspiracy theory. And like I said, these are only my thoughts, opinions, feelings, and my expressions. You know, these are not factual. these are just things that I am thinking and trying to express. That's all. There's nothing factual. Don't take it as Bible. These are just my expressions. So, after saying that, like I said, the Queen herself, who is, the one of the highest, most richest person in the world, she relies on this and make it so bad that this is tied into African Americans. A lot of people are saying that, or some people say, not a lot of people, some people are saying that we should just sit back and watch, and this is much more than sit back and watching. This is intel operations. These are learning operation operandi. We're under operandi, and we need to get with the program. We need to know what they're doing and what we can do to help ourselves. And this is what we need to do. Sorry about the background noise, but I live in a city. Anyway, we need to know what to do and how to do it and why to do it, because these people have figured it out. And like I said, Boule, even though they have a black face, they're not going to show us that. So I showed the video clips of the stuff that how this all started. It started with them doing the National Security Advisor, Michael Flynn, when they went after him. Michael Flynn was also a general in the Army. I believe Michael Flynn is the beginning of this unraveling. He was also the person, the pinpoint person, that had a lot to do with whatever was going on with Democrats and DNC and all of that other stuff. He already went into and out of and over and everything involving them. And as you see, he was not being arrested. For some weird reason he didn't get arrested, and we know why. He probably is the one who is unraveling the whole thing. Doing operandi work, ops work. That's my opinion. It's not true or factual, but this is what I think, because this is where it all started to unfold. Also, as he's doing that, we also see clips of Comey in the mix, and Comey knew Michael Flynn was all involved in this, and he knew that whatever he did, whatever Comey did, Michael Flynn was going to uncover it. So I believe, in my mind and in my conspiracy theory mind, I believe that Comey had to do what he did. He had to reveal something about Hillary Clinton, because that was his life, that was his legacy that was on the line, and that's why he did what he did. Hillary Clinton blamed him for doing that to cause her to lose the election, but it really wasn't that. It was just the unfolding. A lot of those people that worked with Hillary Clinton, oh my gosh, they weren't functional, it seemed to me. I mean, I guess I can't explain it no other way. They hung out, and they talked a lot, and this is why Trump might have overheard a lot of things and was able to take her down. This is why she lost the election. She was being exposed, and she didn't. I mean, I don't know what else to say about it. I mean, I don't know what to say. I tell you the truth, I really don't care. I just like the fact that we're able to have something that we could research and learn from, and try to help us with our planning, because this leads African Americans into a particular situation to where we are not the biggest enemy right now. Someone else is. And we're able to capitalize off of it, because now we are the ones that are saying, hey, you can't use our amendments, our rights, our things that was put for us, because that was put for us. And this goes with it. a lot of people are saying that it doesn't, but it does. We're in a weird position. We're in a position to where we can utilize our rights and we can say something, because right now they're not going to listen to anyone else if we do it the right way. We have to know how to do it, and I'm hoping we do. These guys, as you look at the news clips, you will see that these guys are not by accident. All of them are involved, and they're all working in situations and being planted in places to where they're actually investigating themselves. If you look at the craziness of it, but we have to get to that situation and that type of power and knowledge and all of that. The Boule itself, when you look at them and their structure, they have got themselves in certain positions and systems to where if 5 years, one day they could be working as an intern for this place, and then 5 years later they're working in the White House as the overseer of whatever job that they had, so that when that other case comes up, and it's just the same thing that happened with the five, with the Central Park Five. How, the lawyers got this particular job 1 minute, and then the next minute they're the investigators over the very thing that they messed up on. So these things are like that. I believe, I'm quite sure that's what happened in Central Park 5. But this is what I'm saying. We have to get ourselves in that position. Now, it's sad with them because everybody that comes to them to become any type of person of power, like him with Anthony Weiner, and this is what helped take him down, was Anthony Weiner's the most, with his laptop and having insurance. Because why do you think he did that? He had to have a way to save himself or keep himself, sane or whatever it was. But he had a laptop that had information on these people because he knew he would need it to help himself. And the same thing with Comey. With him telling like that and with him exposing stuff, he knew that if something happened to him, he had to leave a trail as to what went on. And that's what went on with Comey. That's why he did what he did. He was in too deep. Mueller is in too deep. These guys are not doing what y'all think they're doing. So, and this is something that we have to learn ourselves as a community, as to how to play that type of a game. Or when you research it, you'll see it, and it'll be like, wow, this was really deep. But it goes to help us, because right now, if we know these type of things and know how to do these things that they did, we can create that our own power structures too. Now, as you look at the clips and you see and you realize what was going on and how they it was just a lot. Now you see that the Acosta, he doesn't want to resign. He's saying he's not going to resign, and he's over the sex trafficking industry. Like, he's supposed to investigate sex trafficking and all of that. And I'm not laughing because it's funny. I'm laughing because it's the irony of it. I mean, and they're blatantly, openly doing this. Now, Trump has the way to he has to do. I mean, I feel as though Mr. Trump is doing this because this is a personal thing for him, and that he has to go after them for some reason, or whatever reason it is, and from what I could tell is these people do not allow you to become rich and famous or whatever it is unless your hands are dirty. So, I mean, might have something to do with that. You see it now with Biden. He went and he got into the election for them because he didn't want to do it. Remember, with his son passing away, and it's a very tragic story, and with the things going on with his family, that man didn't want to do it. But when he got into it and he didn't do whatever they wanted, I guess, they turned on him. And that's personal. It may be the same thing with Trump. Maybe he got involved and they made him dirty his hands, and now they got something on him. And the only way he could reveal whatever he did is for him to go down. And the only way to reveal whatever they did was for him to go down with them all. And same thing with Biden. It's probably the same thing. He probably has to go down with them all too. So, I mean, and they're just turning on each other and everything else. And that's their business. But that's the tragic thing of it. When you look at it, the powers to be for them are like the Queen and are like, I guess, Saudi. You know, these are just my expressions. You know, I don't know for sure. But, you know, whoever's their power source or whatever, you know, they have to clean house. And the best way to clean house is usually the blackest person is the scapegoat, or the poorest person is the scapegoat. You know, because poor whites are not considered white. They're considered black when they need to be, you know. Or Latin people are not considered Latin. They're considered black when they're not. When I say black, I'm saying the scapegoat. That's what I'm saying. The scapegoat, their way of getting out of everything. And, you know, that's why there's been so much a fight with Boule. And now a lot of the Boule are trying to say that they are black. You see certain singers are now claiming now that they are black now. They're not white. They're not you're better than black people. Black people don't know no better. You know, not just singers but famous people, because they see what's happening, the bells are ringing. Because you know Trump is going to go after a lot of those rich elitist black people, and that money that they have, that's not their money. That money's that money's going back to wherever it came from, and we don't know where it came from. So they're cleaning house and they're going after, you know, the black people that were, you know, successful, and the poor people that became successful, like someone like Anthony Weiner. You know, he's a person that he didn't and he was very courageous. He was very brave. He's not a sniveling coward. He took responsibility for what he was doing. He just didn't have the heart and mind to do what these people wanted him to do, the evilness and the viciousness. And that's not saying that they did not have people to do it. There's a lot of people. There's a lot of entertainers. There's a lot of people that are willing to do whatever it takes to get to wherever they gotta go and be there and stay there for as long as they can. But the bad thing about this is that I guess it's coming to a wrap up. You know, their contracts are up. You know, whatever they signed up for is saying, okay, now it's time for you to show and prove and give us what we want, our what we paid for. So ain't no telling what they're doing to them. And we have to step back and allow it. You know, it's more than just sitting and watching who wins the fight. It's us learning how we need to learn how to fight. Learn the different way of fighting, like our ancestors did. When you look at African Americans and what they did during the Civil Wars and all of this other stuff, these people were so intelligent that we just don't know. We don't understand why there was an Underground Railroad. We don't understand why our songs, our hymns sound the way they were. They were messages in our songs. We've always had messages in our songs, and that's something the Boule has sat there and did, because they do a lot of that evil messaging and all that other stuff in their music, and give it to us. And so, you know, it's just a lot of different things. And like how I said, these are just conspiracy theories, not factual theories. I'm just expressing them. They go on to notice that they go on to doing these type of things, and this is how their games are played. And this is something that we need to know for ourselves, because if we don't know the mind of our enemy, we might as well throw down everything. I cursed before, so I deleted it out. I don't want to cuss on my video. So if you hear me cuss, you know, just let me know. I just don't want to cuss on my videos. But we need to know what all goes on with them. You know, people are asked what all goes on. this is what all goes on with these people, so we know and understand how they think. These secret society people, and they're involved with these type of things. They believe in that stuff, and it's something that is very frightening, very scary, but very powerful, because you can't tame a person's spirit. You know, if they believe in their human spirit that this is what's normal, this is what needs to be done, this is our belief, then you can't fight that with regular tactics. You have to know your enemy. You have to know, and I don't mean enemy as in like, well, I kind of do. Like I always said, I have a conspiracy theory of, you know, these are children of a different sort. These are spiritual children of a different sort. They're not the same as Eve's children. They're different from, you know, Adam and Eve had children, and Adam and so-and-so had other children, or not Adam, you know, that these are, what is it? You know, the children of Cain had separate children. And so, you know, and these children are always fighting with us, with Eve's children. And so we have to figure out who we are. We have to figure out, are we Eve's children or Cain's children? And Cain's children are children that are, I believe, that really don't belong on the earth. And this is another conspiracy theory that I have to make a video of, but that's what I believe. And I believe that we're in that war, and that is something that is spiritual. And the only way we can fight that is by spiritual things. And when you're thinking, and when you're learning, and you're being knowledgeable, those are unseen things, sort of like spiritual things. Those are things that people can't see, so they can't determine it. And so, as I was saying, we need to know what they're doing and how they're doing it, so we could make our own reinforcements. And like how I always said, we need to become our own funding source, because they're not going to give us reparations, not the way that we need it. We can try to get as much as we can, get our own land, because really we own the United States through those contracts, and we can have that honored. The only way we could do that is by going to places like the UN and putting in our thing, but we have to be collective. We have to be together. We have to all be together and all figure out ways of doing this together. We can't have all the belay and all of this, and you just won't have it. You know, they want us to go out. Belay would want us to go out in the streets and fight, because there's two separate Americas. And you see that also with these cases. There's two separate Americas. You know, you see how Weinstein and all of that are getting away with everything, and how Bill Cosby and all of that, they're going to jail, and all these other people. There's two separate Americas. There's two separate systems. And I'm trying to tell you one of the ways that this other system operates. And we have to fall in line and be a part of that accordingly. Now, a lot of people are also saying about, I just wanted to say this, a lot of people are always talking about how, immigration is all of this and stuff. But there's really, in a way, it's very sad, because African Americans right now have to take care of themselves in order to become the leaders that they need to be. But there are people that are here. Like I said, immigration is not bad. What they were doing was bad. People who are from other countries, I don't care about this, because they're being used to. They're the people who think that they are not like black people. And for a while they got away with it because, hey, if you could do that, you can do that. But now they're feeling it. But a lot of that stuff was because a lot of people who were immigrants or who came here, they're being used. They're being used horribly. A lot of these people, you see the Chinese stores and stuff. That stuff ain't easy. It's not easy. A lot of it is a lot of manipulation, and they're able to use them. But but Trump is saying no more, because they started to use them to where they got over on the white man, on the American white man, and that's why they're going. And once they got over on them, they realized that, you know, the white man said, wait a minute, you taking our money, get out. And that's why he's there. But a lot of it is legal. A lot of these people that are coming from other countries, they're not meaning no harm. They're doing what they're supposed to do. Even people who are illegal, they're doing what they're supposed to do, but they're being used, and they're being used in the worst way. The oppression that's there for them, it's horrible. You know, all those stores that you see and all that, that's not owned by those Chinese people. That's owned by governments and all this other stuff. And those people go through hell. And the only people that really could help them are African Americans. We're the only thing that they can rely on, because we do have the laws. We do have the power of a contract. We do have all these things. And like I said, those things are going to have to come to us if we ever figure out how to become close in unity instead of sabotaging each other and stealing from each other. And like how I said, we are on the land. It makes no sense. We are on the land, not Native Americans. Native Americans sold out. They got paid. And then they sold out on their African descendants as well, because they do have a lot of people that are half African American, and they don't want to acknowledge them, but they want, like, you know, all the rights to their land. So a lot of that stuff is being used. I am also a part of that Native American group, my family. But, you know, ever since we had came from, you know, we have proven roots. We were from the plantations and stuff like that. But anyway, that's our power. And like I had always said, this can cause World War III, because all of them are tied into that power. And all of them want the resources of Africa. Now, if we can ever prove that Africa is a government that owes those descendants of that they shipped off, if we can prove that, then we owe the land in Africa also. We have contracts, and those contracts are given all over the world. And these things, that's what the UN is. It's nothing but a damn contract. Oh, I cursed again. It's a darn contract. Please forgive me. And it's known all over the world. And you have to look at it as what it is. And those contracts mean stuff. Peace treaties and all those things mean stuff. And we need to figure that out. You know, it's better for us to go to the UN Council and say, look, you know, this, you do owe us. They do owe us. And this and this and this and this. Why, when we can't do it as African Americans or have a representative to do it, but these other people and other groups can say it and receive help? You know, that's what they did with the border children. You know, they call them, I believe, the term was anchor babies, something like that. They used it. They used ours, and they weren't supposed to. But this goes on all the time, and this is why Acosta herself, the lady from New York, she said this about reparations, because they're going to use that to help them. That's all that is. That it's not going to help African Americans, because they're going to say we're all, you know, oppressed, and we're all this and we're all that, and we all deserve this and we all deserve that. Native Americans said that they deserved reparations, and they didn't. They sold out. They got paid. Their contracts are not the same. Africans in Africa claimed that they were owed the land and all of this, but they didn't. They didn't deserve it because they got paid for that land. They got money over that land that they had given up. And now they want to cry and say that the Europeans took all of this and that. That's not true. And it's not fair. They're taking what was credited for African Americans or people who are descendants of slaves. They took that from them in order to benefit themselves. Now all these other countries are paying reparations, even though they still have slavery. And they have that because of what had happened in Libya. And they didn't want Libya itself to become separate, but that's a different story. Anyway, all I'm saying is my conspiracy theories and expressing my opinions and my thoughts on it. This is how we should learn how to become tactical on what we need to do. Not sabotaging each other. Not taking each other's content. Not looking at each other like they're stupid and helping to keep each other down, because that's only going to make things worse. I mean, because I could be the type of person that I can know something that you don't. Or I can see something that you don't. Just like how a lot of people are always putting down black women. Dark-skinned black women. Not all. Really, really women. But a lot of people don't deem dark-skinned black women in a good light, right? We're always the enemy. I believe Eve herself was a dark-skinned black woman. This is my conspiracy theory, and that she was the one who had to learn the most through her mistakes, even though she wasn't taught. Adam was supposed to teach her. He was supposed to protect her and guide her, because he was the one that heard God's voice for himself. And I believe Adam represents the black male, in a sense. He was the one who heard from God. And that's our whole culture, the black race. We are the ones that heard from God first. And this is why we were so powerful. And this is why we are the ones that are needed to be oppressed. When I say that African Americans should help themselves, but it all boils down to at some point we're going to have to help other Africans, other black people that are melanated. We are going to have to help them, because they are oppressed no matter what they're doing. It's just that now they've learned to go ahead and hold us back, because we have the most power in America, African Americans. And a lot of people say, oh, you better not claim America. And I'm claiming it. I'm claiming it because this is old to me. It's an inheritance. It's no longer, it's inheritance. We own the whole entire United States. Trillions of dollars. They can't even pay, and that's not even what they owe us. It's beyond that. It's astronomical, and they can't pay us. This little band of people, not a lot. It's not a lot of us, but this little band of people. And then the fact that we might owe parts of Africa, the gold, the real money. Why do you think they won't let us leave? That wall that they're building could be a wall to keep us in. And we need to find a way to become our own funding source, to where we can get up and still be free. We need to take advantage of this time. This time is a weird time. And if we don't wake up and try to take advantage of it and try to come together, we're never going to get ahead, and we're never going to get out. So, and this is what we need to do, strategize, instead of fighting with a black woman because she's dark-skinned, saying that she has bad hair, and no one stands up for her. If you say that to an African woman that's in Africa, do you know how many African men will start cursing you out, telling you stay away from their women? If you say that, don't even think to say that anything bad about a white woman, because she'll have 1,000. Look at what's happening with Hillary Clinton. Hillary Clinton caused all this stuff, and she's the first one not going to jail. Like I said, the first one that go to jail will be the one with the darkest face, the blackest face, or the poorest white person out of that whole group. Not her, because she's a white lady, and she cried, And even though Trump hates her, that's his cousin. You know, that's what they claim, they're cousins. So, you know, I feel sorry for all the black people that are around them, because they know what's about to go down. We can't do anything. They have bigger fish to catch, you know, and it's sad. And like how I said, you know, you can't get away with calling them out of their name or even looking at them wrong, because you'll get your behind whooped. If you say something against an African lady or anything like that, those African men will jump all over you, even though they treat them bad. They'll jump all over you. Are you crazy? Don't talk that way. Don't speak to her like that. You would never sit there, okay? Saying someone has bad hair, that's okay to say, but you can't sit there and have a colorism aspect to anyone, and no one defends them. You know, that's a big thing. That's the same thing that happened to Eve in the garden. No one defended her. Well, and Adam blamed her. Said she had bad hair. That's why everything went bad for them. God, that's why he bit the apple, but he knew better. He knew not to do it. So she was the easiest scapegoat, was her. So a lot of times that happens, but you can't say anything about any other woman. But if you can say it about the dark-skinned black woman, because we are the bad ones. But we are the ones who discern most. We are the ones who, because Eve had to start discerning and figuring out what she needed to do so she wouldn't get in trouble anymore. So she had to do that for herself. So she had to be the one to stand at the door and watch and wait and discern and figure out if this is a snake that's talking to me, or if this is the good thing that I will allow around my children. And that's the biggest thing for people to understand. And she has to defend herself. That's why she fights so much. You know, the black woman fights so much. And this is why, you know, they fight so much. You know, they have to stand up and be tough and all these other things so that people can call them ugly and everything else. But we have to teach. We're left to teach Adam, because after we became Adam's wife, we had to become Adam's mother and protect Adam. And even though he's ungrateful and doing all these other things, what do we have to do? We have to love our family, be long-suffering. And we are the ones that are able to actually talk to Adam or the black man or whatever. And so it's very painful when we're being attacked and Adam doesn't help us. He starts to laugh. He starts to say we are black and ugly, or our hair isn't no good. Now, I understand, because I've even said that I want a boyfriend with good hair. I want someone to have good hair, and that's okay. All right, whatever. But when it gets to where you're saying that the person's skin tone and skin color is something that's so disgusting, you know, you can have a preference, but you don't have to talk about people like that. That's insane. That shows hatred towards that person. Well, that was my little rant. And now I have to say goodnight. I hope you guys could like, comment, subscribe, check out all of my platforms, and just give your honest opinion on everything. And I'll try not to cuss next time. I know that was shocking. Just, you know, I just hope everyone will try to come together in black unity, because that's all we got. All we got is each other. So, much love, guys. Night. Hey guys, if you enjoy the content of my videos, You can like, subscribe, hit the notification bell to get notices of my uploads of all my videos, and also comment down below.